Hello students, I'm Himani Sharma, your UGC NET educator. In this new YouTube video, we are going to move forward with the concept series on paper 2 English Literature. So first of all, we have started with the Indian aesthetics and we have tried to cover the Dhwani theory of Anandavardhan. The second video that we are going to bring forward is of course this one, which talks about Kuntak's Vakroti theory. Now these theories, first of all, you also need to build with this very thing in your mind that somewhere or the other these theories are interlinked with each other. They are talking about poetry, they are talking about the aesthetics, the experience that you get when you read a particular piece of poetry for that matter. So you need to know, if not much, the basic definition of these very particular theories which are given in Indian aesthetics. What do they really mean? Who gave or who propounded that very particular theory? And of course, in what book particularly? Correct? So, Kuntak was the person who gave us the theory of Vakroti. We will be talking about it with the usage of certain examples so that things are clear to all of us, and you can jot those examples down on your notebooks so that bolden it down wherever you see that how we are going to deal with the examples which are used here. Correct? So, he was the originator of the Vakroti School or the Sanskrit literary theory. So, literary theory has not just been a sphere of the Western people, even let's just say it came to the West at around the same time when Plato, Aristotle, etc. these people were there in the West, right? We also had the people in India here who were also writing their stances, their literary criticism, but was which language? In Sanskrit, Prakrit, so on and so forth. He wrote Vakroti Jivitam, in which we get the idea, we get the theory of what? We get the theory of Vakroti. Correct? To lay emphasis on the inner value of the alankaras, which are part and parcel or the essential part of poetry. So if you would have seen my previous video on Dhwani theory, which has been given by Anandavardhan, I told you that the alankaras, what are alankaras? Alankaras are the decorative. These are the decorative figures of speech. Correct? Decorative, or these are known as the ornaments. The way we wear these jhumkas, we wear the necklaces, etc. to make ourselves look beautiful. Same is the case with the poetry. Poetry also needs to be the one which is evoking emotions, which is beautiful to us. So of course, to enhance that very or to beautify that very particular piece of poetry, the poet uses certain figures of speech which are known as alankaras. Now, the example of alankara, if you can totally recall from the previous video, I gave you this one. She sells seashells on the seashore. So, alankara ka ek example we've talked about the alliteration. So, the repeated sound of the word sir, correct? So, that is decorating the speech. Even I am the one who is still the one, मैं भी अड़ जाती हूँ ये बोलते time. Correct? So, she sells seashells on the seashore. This is an example of alliteration, alankara, which is decorating the poetry. Even you will not be able to pronounce it in one go, of course. Some of you will be practiced in that, I don't know. Correct? So, it was given by Kuntak. Kuntak ne Vakroti ki theory di, that can be asked in the match the following. Now, literally means, Vakroti literally means crooked or deviant speech. Deviant or deviant speech. So, basically, it really means that you are moving away from the common way of talking, common way of speech, common manner of speech. So, we will be talking about how Kuntak thought that the speech of a normal man, unlike Wordsworth said that the speech should be the one which is common, of common man. But here Kuntak is saying that the language of poetry should be different from the common rustic language, because the language of poetry is much more embellished, much more superior than the common language, right? Taken up by discussion. This theory has already been taken up by discussion, right? Before Kuntak, but he wrote a detailed or a comprehensive theory, document on this very particular theory of Vakroti. So before that, Bama, Dandin, Vaman or Rudrata, etc., these people have also talked about Vakroti, but not in that much detail as Kuntak did, right? Synonymous with the principles of beauty underlying all kinds of poetic languages. He uses the phrase Vakroti Kavya Jivitam because it means that the beautiful and the miraculous in poetry are born due to Vakroti. Vakroti की वजह से काव्य में मतलब basically काव्य जीवितम. They live, they beautify, they get beautified because of the usage of Vakroti. He sees poetic language as being marketed differently from the common ordinary language. As I already told you, that he says the ordinary language of people, according to him, lacks elegance and grace. But here, if we talk about poetry, so if you are reading English literature, it is really a beautiful thing that we get to know different perspective of things, right? He is talking about in that very particular time, he is talking about in ancient times of the time where he is saying that yes, poetic language is good, but normal language is not that good. But after certain centuries, Wordsworth pops out and he says, no, common language should be there in the 18th century when he talked about in the Romantic era. Common language should be used in poetry rather than the embellished language. So we get to, let's just say experience all the perspectives. Why do we say it widens? Literature widens the gap, right? Of course. It lacks elegance and grace, has a kind of rusticity and is not capable of removing ignorance. So he says poetry should be there. Vakrokti is the source of beauty in Kavya. Vakrokti Kavya Jivitam, which is quite opposite to the description of a thing as it is. Again, the Dhwani theory that we did in the previous lecture, it was talking about the suggestive meaning. Vakrokti is somewhere or the other related to it only. That is why I told you that these theories will be related to one another. Not the description of a thing as it is, but it will be providing some kind of meaning. Although many other words are there to convey the same meaning, the poetic word is what ultimately conveys the sole meaning intended by the poet. So the poet will need to use the words really minutely with really detailed in a really detailed manner, because it is what he wants to convey which should reach the reader, not what he as a reader is trying to get out from that very particular poetry. So first of all, we are going to take an example of Vakrokti using the metaphor, right? Metaphor, Rupa ke through. Verse is, her laughter was a melody dancing through the air. So metaphor is used in here. Of course, implicit, comparison, comparing her laughter to a melody, song, humming. Indirect expression adds depth and beauty to the verse. Her laughter was a melody. If you would have just written, her laughter was dancing through the air. Even dancing through the air is such a beautiful expression which has been used, right? If you would have just used that her laughter was infectious, that would have been a direct statement. But he has written as a poet in the verse, her laughter was a melody dancing through the air. Right? So this is what we talk about in here, indirect expression, creating a vivid image in the reader's mind. That is something which is evoking certain kinds of feelings in the reader's mind, and he or she gets connected to the piece of poetry. Then we have another example of Vakrokti using irony. The verse is, the wise fool. So here, wise fool preached his wisdom to deaf ear. He is wise as well as he is a fool. First of all, what kind of figure of speech is used in here? Oxymoron, which means two opposite, contrasting things. I was happily sad. What is that? That is oxymoron, because how can you be happily sad? Correct? So the wise fool preached his wisdom to deaf ears. Contrasting the wisdom of the fool with the inability of the audience to understand. So this is an ironical statement which is used in here. This adds layer of complexity because you will also need to get this irony. Kai baar people don't even get a statement which is sarcastically meant for them. Correct? So why is that? Because oblique expression, not so clear, blurred expression is used, and thought-provoking quality of the verse, that is there. The wise fool, it is also having some kind of figures of speech, as I already told you. Oxymoron is also used in here. Next example we have is the word play. Puns, correct? Her eyes cast a spell, enchanting all who dared to glance. The wordplay which is used in here is the word cast. Now, cast here has a double meaning of both spell casting, that she was spell casting there, enchanting all who dared to glance at her, or casting a glance, just looking. Indirect expression, again, it adds a playful and imaginative element to the verse here. So, of course, there is a pun which is used in here. The words are playing in here. Then we have two other elements of Vakroti which should be there, gun or dosh. And if we translate them literally in Hindi language, gun means the positive qualities, ye positive qualities hai, dosh means these are the negative qualities. So of course, positive qualities, the virtues of poetry we are talking about in here, because we are dealing with aesthetics, Indian aesthetics and the poetic language. Then dosh, faults or shortcomings in any kind of poetic expression, and Kuntaka says that both of these are required in a piece of poetry, and one should know how to balance the gun or dosh to achieve the aesthetics. Correct? So we are going to see an example here of gun and dosh here. Her voice, like honey, dripped from her lips, but her words stung like a venomous serpent. So here you are seeing gun and dosh, the positive and the negative qualities, that her voice like honey, her voice was really sweet, dripped from her lips, but the words which were coming out of her mouth were really venomous. They were not good. So let's just read it here. The gun is the beautiful comparison of her voice to honey. Shahad bhi meetha hota hai. It means that the comparison that is being drawn in here is that her voice was really sweet as honey. Right? Dosh kya hai? And it is not dosa, it's dose, of course. Contrasting effect creating by comparing her words to a venomous serpent. Hurtful impact. Sometimes people do, even if they have a sweet voice, they do say such things which are hurtful. So the verse which is here, her voice like honey dripped from her lips, but her words stung like a venomous serpent, that they were so hurtful. They were hurting like a serpent has stung a person. Balancing both these things, because we see how beautifully they have used these particular words in this very particular example. So we see the balancing of good and dosh in this very particular verse. Dhvani, suggestive meaning, which is an element of Vakroti only. The resonance connected to Vakroti as oblique expression enhances the Dhvani of a poem. So which means Vakroti itself is oblique expression, a blurred expression, indirect statement. When you will have a blurred expression used in a verse of poetry in a particular line, that will eventually lead to the enhancement of dhvani, because dhvani is talking about the suggestive meaning. कि ये क्या suggest कर रहा है, hidden meaning, and with the blurry lines which are there, only you will be able to get to understand the suggested meaning. Correct? It creates an emotional and aesthetic impact. Dhvani we have already covered in the previous. So we are going to see an example. In the darkest night, a single star whispered hope. So of course, how will a single star be talking? How will it will be letting you know about the hope. So it is a suggestion of hope in the darkest night through the imagery of a single star. To see, we all are seeing hope in the darkest of times. Even one bright light or one kind gesture of someone can make us feel at ease in our darkest times. So this is what has been suggested through the usage of a single star whispered the hope, which you are lacking. But even if you are seeing the minute detail that yes, I do want to crack NET JRF, if there is only one small reason as well, which is hopeful for you all will be able to do it, right? The indirect expression amplifies the emotional impact. Kuntak's theory had a profound impact. We already know Vakroti. Now it's oblique expression. Emphasize the beauty and creativity of indirect expression which comes along with the dhwani of Anandavardhan. Inspired subsequent scholars and poets. So we need to know again Kuntak and Anandavardhan. Kuntak gave the theory of Vakrokti, which is oblique or blurred expression. Here Anandavardhan gave the theory of dhwani, that is suggestive meaning. Right? So you can jot this pointer down. We are going to cover one more theory that is known as Auchitya, which is Kshemendra's theory, which is given by Kshemendra, of course. The theory's name is Auchitya that we are going to cover in the next lecture. So, of course, wo theory bhi already will be linked to these very particular things. We'll be doing them with the usage of examples as we did in today's class, right? Till then, you all keep on smiling. I'll see you again. Thank you so much and have a good day. Bye-bye.